People are going to wonder why you're here on the cold open, and then in the middle of the Dave segment, in comes Paul. Where was he?
It's like a ghost. The magic of Paul.
It's just
the legend of Bagger P Mac.
Regular sausage factory here. We're just making sausage and everybody's seeing it.
It's not a sausage factory.
Oh, Geeta, you're thinking of Sausage Fest.
Oh.
Big difference.
Oh, we get a lot of shots. Everybody come to their net. We just have to get more and more pucks to their net.
We used to talk about in Vancouver getting pucks on net.
What were you saying about putting pucks on net?
Got it to the flank, put pucks on net.
Pucks on net. Pucks on net.
Continue to put pucks on net.
Pucks on net.
Pucks on net. No getting pucks on net.
Pucks on net and driving it, making it a hard night on them.
Live on tape from Geeta's apartment, her palatial estate on the 23rd floor. This is Pucks on Net, a Vancouver hockey podcast that doesn't talk about fantasy or fancy stats. Paul, does your mic work?
Hey, works too well, apparently.
We, second time we're doing the intro. It's the new podcast, the first podcast of the new year, and sometimes things randomly stop working.
We've been off for a month. Forgive us.
Yeah, and we figured things out. This is why you always bring a second XLR and a second microphone, or in my case, a third and a fourth, just in case.
I've got a good feeling about this show.
I think so. Sometimes when you got to redo things, it works out just great. That we did that with the Well-Lit episode. I fucked up the board and looked like a fool in front of everybody, and I'm not going to do that this time.
Well, you just mean Kyle, in front of Kyle.
He was like, well, I got nowhere else to go today, so I might as well just sit this one out. Man, I hope everything works. My name's Ryan. I'm going to be your host for the evening. Riding shotgun, my fantasy football compadre at one point or another. That's Geeta. She owns this place.
I do. And this week in fantasy hockey, I'm up against Paul.
You're destroying me at the moment.
We don't need to talk about fantasy hockey. And P Mac, you're here too. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Sorry for breaking your rule about Fight Club.
No, he doesn't want to talk about fantasy hockey because he's not very good.
Nope.
Oh.
I believe the Pucks on Net newsletter describes me as shit sucking. So I don't necessarily agree with the person who writes that, but that is an accurate term to describe my team.
You are the personification of the Edmonton Oilers. You drafted first and not well.
Oh, I got McDavid. I think I'll be just fine. I want to thank you for joining us wherever you guys from. Want to just tell you that as I queue up my stuff. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at PucksOnNetCA or PucksOnNetCa. And if you want to support the show monetarily, you can head on over to patreon.com/PucksOnNet, where you can pledge a couple of bucks.
And you need to cut those better. They chop him off.
I kind of like how crappy they sound. Is that
it's like upple a buck?
If you want to pledge a couple of bucks, patreon.com/PucksOnNet. A whole bunch of new stuff got posted late last week.
Did it?
Yeah, P-Mac and I did a bonus show.
I shot myself in the foot. He asked if I wanted to do something Friday, and I'm like, do you mean a Patreon episode? And he's like, no, but let's do that too.
Damn it. It's so true, because people always, we take most of December off because the Christmas time is so busy and stressful. And now that I have Fridays off, I'm like, man, I haven't seen Paul since the party.
I also feel like for the last week, the three of you guys have been itching to podcast, because every time my phone blows up with all these texts, I'm doing something especially girly.
And you go, Elias Pettersson, really?
You're working on your hockey pool?
But anyway, we went to the World Juniors semifinal game, Canada. Not this year.
It was the game I wanted to see Team USA at least once.
Yeah, USA versus Russia, which was a really fun. It was a pretty fun game actually, and we were able to go for only a couple of bucks. And then we recorded a bonus episode. Talked a lot about Pettersson. We'll probably talk about Pettersson today.
I mean, you're not done talking about Pettersson?
Well, no, not everybody pledges money, but if you do want to pledge money over at Patreon to listen to the show, and we recorded some banter during the game. I always wanted to see what that sounded like. Actually sounds pretty good.
Oh, by the way, before you got here, because you took so long to get here, I pitched the idea of you guys doing a Friday podcast on the reg.
On the rig?
On the rig. It's about the Oilers.
On the regular.
Come on, if we did a podcast about the Oilers, think of all the segments we'd have. We'd have like a big loud bell and be like, "Hey, has Milan Lucic scored today?"
That could be your second podcast
On the rig.
I don't watch enough Oilers to talk about them that in
It
depth.
doesn't matter.
You just make it up as you go.
I thought there were 6 divisions today.
The Prince of
That was only, 3-4 years ago? They switched that? 5-6 years ago?
It's like, yeah, Prince of Wales and the Metropolitan. Then the Northeast.
Aren't
the
those the
Southwest.
same ones? Prince of Wales had Hartford in it.
I'm imagining watching a game with Geeta sometime soon. 3-on-3 overtime? What is going on?
Where's the tie?
Was there a fight I missed when I was in the bathroom? There's 4 guys in the penalty box?
When did they expand to Philadelphia?
Geeta hasn't watched a game since 1967. That's comedy. You're not going to get that on the rig. Nothing funny on that show.
That's a funeral over there.
Milan Lucic is now like the Corey Schneider of forwards. Hasn't done anything in 2 years.
Careful, don't compare Milan Lucic to Corey Snyder. 'Cause Lucic's girlfriend will be all up in your grill.
Oh, beautiful callback there, Paulie. I think you just saved on the rig.
10 years ago, 8 years ago that happened.
Oh, I forgot to do one last thing for Patreon. The Dave soundboard. It's brought to you by Patreon backer Chris Schneider. Corey Schneider's long-lost brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He doesn't know it. And
what does Lucic's girlfriend think about him?
Doesn't like him either.
I don't like you either. No.
I don't even know
Seems
who.
like a good dude. I was trying to quote Star Wars. I'm sorry, Ryan. That's not in your boathouse.
My boathouse.
Yeah.
Hey, let's just for the pretending for the magic of pre-recorded audio. Is everybody else's headphones doing that?
Crackling, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to Dave, who's gonna Skype in. Dave, are you on the line? And then he'll get
I
here.
think that's a good idea. I got a lot of beefs. I got some stuff to go over.
Are we talking to you on your new iPhone?
No, you're not talking to me on my new iPhone because I spaced and didn't get the Skype app yet for my new iPhone.
I confessed to Dave this weekend that I was really afraid he got an Android.
Whoa.
I basically sent him a test text.
Is it?
If she got a green bubble back instead of a blue, we were not going to be friends anymore.
Now, Dave, you are long removed from the dating world or the possibility of being in the online dating world, but the idea of when you see a green bubble, it just kind of they're working uphill.
You're kind of deflated.
A little bit. Yeah.
Really? That's interesting. See, that's something I never thought of. So in the online dating world, if you're using an Android and you get a green, you have to be at least a half point hotter than you actually are.
Well, you just think it could be a burner, like a Huawei or something.
Hey, if it's a Huawei, you got bigger national security problems. The Huawei people are listening to your phone calls.
We got Dave Skyping in from our nation's capital. It's a little after 10 p.m. there. Dave, how are you doing?
It's pretty good. It's a balmy -20 out today in the nation's capital. It's you know what I noticed? This is one thing that I never thought of until recently, but I haven't seen any insects in several months, which makes sense because they're all dead.
Oh, that's good. I have what are they called? The big long things.
Yeah.
Silverfish.
Daddy long legs.
Silverfish. Got some silverfish going around the apartment.
Ew, what does that look
the
like?
silverfish is a West End of Vancouver staple, isn't it?
It's the distant cousin of the bedbug.
Oh,
but
yes,
not
the
as
very
bad.
distant cousin of the bedbug.
So, Dave, you're fresh off of one of the greatest Canucks performances we've seen all year and in some years, in some seasons in Ottawa. And
what a roller coaster of a week it's been in Canuckland. And talk about kicking it off on a high. January 2nd. Doesn't that seem like a year ago that Ottawa game?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's not even a week yet.
Life was a lot different around January 2nd.
It was the last time they scored a goal.
That is true. That is you have graduated from the Jeff Patterson School of stand-up comedy with singers like that.
That is the last time the Canucks scored a goal was in front of my own very eyes. and Yerky21 decided in overtime to go to the bathroom and missed it.
Yeah, and can you remind us who scored that goal?
It was Elias Pettersson, old peg leg Petey. But yeah, Yerky looks at me and he goes, "You think I got time to go to the can before the overtime starts?" I'm like, "It's starting now. You'll never make it back."
And that overtime was like one of the greatest single video game performances I've seen from a hockey player, let alone a Canuck. And they had that. I don't know if you've seen that video, but they have the ISO camera on him for his whole shift.
Yes.
And
yes.
And there was like 3 moves that I was shocked that he did. And the first one was, hey, there's P Mac here. The first one was when he steps on the ice. He's just like, I'm like, there's no way he's going to go around that guy. And he does. And then it's just a matter of clanging it off posts and scoring goals.
Yeah, and in person too. Like that's the first time I've seen the kid play up close. And, you just can't take your eyes off him. He's magnetic. Like you just can't stop watching because he's going to do something crazy. I haven't felt that way since when I was a 10-year-old Russian set my heart aflutter named Pavel Bure. Let's just hope that he doesn't hold out and demand a trade to Florida.
Well, I made the crack on Twitter after that happened, and I don't want I want the comparisons to stop, but I also I don't want there to be any Pavel Bure comparisons to our boy Elias Pettersson.
Well, a knee injury certainly won't do anything to quell those comparisons, will it?
P Mac just entered the room.
Are we talking about Steve Smith? I mean, Kotkaniemi? What?
You watching that happen was just mortifying, and you're somebody, as we talked about on the Patreon show, that you recently had a pretty bad knee injury, and just from what you saw,
anytime you see the knee bend the wrong way, all of a sudden I start going over all the things my doctors. Well, it could be this. We need to get you in for an MRI. Mine was a tear in a spot, and it'll never heal.
So some PTSD.
Oh, totally, 100%.
When go on,
now
Dave.
I see. I hang on. See, if Paul was a professional athlete, I believe the formerly seen as a good guy now total scumbag Louis C.K. had a bit about that. Like if Paul was a professional athlete, they would have done something to fix his knee. They would have had an amazing, world-class orthopedic surgeon go in there with a robot and fix his knee up, and he'd be good to go. But because he's a 30-something-year-old journalist.
There are things that you could do, but it also opened my eyes up to there are a lot of professional athletes that suffer injuries, and then people crap on them because they're not the same player they used to be in their late 20s and 30s, and people don't take into account because they're still sort of okay. I'm still going to the gym and trying to. If I was in better shape, I'd be able to do a little bit more on my knee than I am right now. And it's just the type of thing I have a lot more compassion for these guys that suffer injuries and people crap on them for retiring at 29, 30 years old sometimes. And it's you know what? Some of these injuries never let you be the same guy. And it's not that they're not trying.
You also, if you did have access to these weird Canadian privatized healthcare, like those underground rich kid clinics, you would have this beautiful robotic knee that just went all ways, and you would be climbing mountains.
If there are robotic knees out there, that's something I'm going to have to talk to some insurance folks about, because I do have access to some private clinics.
It's true, though, because I did my knee when I was 19, and I was still a young athlete, and I had my ligaments repaired, and I only on a super, super cold day, when I'm standing outside for a really long time, do I feel any ill effects. I play hockey. I play one heck of a shitty Beatles baseball with Ryan. I don't have these long-term effects.
The cold months are definitely worse on mine as well.
They are, but again, I had a world-class surgeon at UBC Hospital do the knee. He flew in from somewhere else to do the knee, and then it was a year of physiotherapy and training. Unfortunately, when you're 30, 35, and you're not an athlete, you just have a regular job. You're the back of the bus. They're not going to do anything to fix Paulie's knee yet. But hey, it's 2019.
Mine was on the job, man. Paulie. Mine was on the job. So if there was something they could do, theoretically, it would happen.
Dave, the other thing you wanted to talk about was the Colorado Avalanche and the fact that they could potentially make the playoffs in a pretty good spot and draft first overall in June.
Nobody's benefiting more from the Ottawa Senators goaltending situation than the Colorado Avalanche. It is an unprecedented tank job. They've lost 8 in a row, and this is a team that's not trying to tank. They're doing absolutely everything they can to win as many games as they can to avoid it's going to happen. You just have to believe in something. You have to believe in something. You have to have hope and a reason to get out of bed every day.
Right.
And I kind of enjoy being in this town, living in this town for what's going to be the biggest disaster in the front office of an NHL team in recent memory. You're going to finish last. Your team's lottery ball is going to be picked. It's a surefire blue chip player who we know is going to be a beast. And it's going to go to a team that's going to be in a wild card spot this year.
You know what?
It's unprecedented. And to make it better, sorry, Ryan, to make it better, the asset that you traded for is going to sign somewhere else in the summer. It's so fucked up.
That's Mr.
Thank God they got a puppy to soften the blow.
Yeah, the shitty teams are bringing in the trauma dogs, the therapy dogs, which I love. Forward-thinking, progressive, approaches to stress and anxiety, and bringing that puppy in, great idea. They need like 6 or 7 more.
No, Eugene's already sold the puppy. He's trying to cover his losses from that LeBreton Flats lawsuit.
Have you seen
the puppy's gone?
Have you seen all these Senators commercials they run during Senators games where they're just like, positive attitude in the face of adversity isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. And it's like, Ottawa Senators.
Guys, I've seen them, Paulie, and they show them getting their asses kicked in the hype videos.
Yeah, it's
weird.
They're described.
It's so weird.
Well, we shit on the Canucks for so many years when they refused to admit that it was a rebuild or a retool or a rejig on the fly.
Resiliency.
At least the Senators are like, hey, guess what? Things are really fucking shitty right now, and we're rebuilding, and this is what we're going through, and this is why we're not going to be very good. So when Batch, it was.
Do you need commercials to do that? Even the Canucks advertise. Like, I know teams.
Well, yes, you do need commercials, because without commercials, I didn't know that Troy Stecher could push a log really fast across Kid's Beach.
I'm not a big fan of the Canucks ones, and then when I saw the Sens ones, I'm like, the Canucks ones are great.
Could be worse. Could be worse. It's funny because it's also a bit of a veteran graveyard. Like when you go, I've been to like 5 Senators games now because there's not much else to do.
They're just giving them away.
And they're just giving tickets away like they're going out of style. It's like WCW in early 2000s, Ryan. They're just trying to fill the dome.
At least the Sens are kind of fun to watch. At least like they have some offense. Yeah. There was the game they came back. They were down 3-0. It was 4-4, and then they lost it in the last 90 seconds yesterday, I think that was.
Well, they put Anders Nilsson in the second half of that game. What do you expect? He's going to close it out for you. He's going to keep that win loss percentage low, like Chapman's.
When it's not him, it's Hogberg, who's they're normally their 4th string goalie.
I think they got Mike Condon down playing for.
Condon's injured, I think, right now, so they couldn't even use him if they wanted.
Oh no!
No, he's just hanging out down in Belleville because they got a new Tim Hortons.
What you do in Belleville.
I think I'm close to Belleville. I actually have no idea where Belleville is, but I've been told by friends in Ottawa that we are. If you wanted to drive there to watch a hockey game, you could. I think it's about a 90-minute drive.
I think
it's in the Kingston area, I believe.
That's Wellwood territory.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's weird going to these games. I gotta say though, as a road fan, I didn't get the animosity. People in Ottawa generally, as I've said before on the podcast, are very, very polite and very nice. And when the Canucks were scoring those goals and winning the game, it wasn't so much of a sit down. It was like, oh, good for you guys, bud.
You guys are almost as bad as we are, but you got a couple of things that haven't demanded trades or aren't Bobby Ryan.
The Yerkster and I were wearing very, very niche market jerseys. He had a yellow Thomas Gradine jersey on, which is a deep pull.
Yeah. And you had your Hank Sedin skate.
The one night only jersey. But that was the other thing. This is an observation of ours. We were at the game. Is that Canuck fans? Even though the building was almost half Canuck fans, it was
It was so loud when Pettersson scored in overtime that game.
Oh yeah, we were all screaming. But here's the thing, though: you don't get that continuity of color. Like if the Leafs are in Ottawa, you'll see a sea of blue. But the Canucks have had so many jerseys. It's like there's a black one, a yellow one, a blue one, a burgundy one.
It's a rainbow
come on,
one.
You get excited to see each and every one of them. That's like a walk through history.
Oh yeah, it really is. The most egregious fake jersey we saw was there was a guy with the West Coast Express era dark jersey with a Pettersson 40 on the back that was counterfeit.
Yeah, that one was incredible. That made the Athletes for that. Well, we don't peddle them anymore, so don't worry about them.
That Dennis Peterson's dad at the
game?
Dave, you bring...
Yeah, Dennis Petersson. Yeah, Yerke spotted that one as we were coming through the concourse, and he took a photo and he sent it to Bot.
Dennis
got picked up.
He was worth half of Alex McGillney. Or a third of him, I forget.
I'll keep you on the line for this, but over our podcast break, I went to the Flyers game here in Vancouver, and I wore my Braden Shen from our jersey giveaway exchange, or jersey exchange at the beginning of the season. I wore a Flyers jersey to the Canucks game.
Hey, it's a nice looking tarp. It's a good tarp.
It is. It's a great jersey, and if I do ever mosey back into the men's league hockey, that's gonna be my go-to. But I wanted to wear that to see what the reaction would be like in a social experiment, because when am I gonna have a chance to wear this jersey again? And I didn't get a lot of animosity either. But the Canucks won the game. Yeah, the Canucks. Yeah, they beat the shit out of Philly, and that's why Dave Haxtell got fired. But I had all the Canucks fans going, "Oh, really sorry about the game, man." I'm like, I don't fucking care. Like, go, yeah. Well, who cares? Go Canucks. But I was worried that I did bring batteries just in case to throw.
I was gonna say, if you're gonna cosplay, you gotta go cosplay deep. You gotta drink Miller High Lifes, and you gotta throw batteries if you're gonna be a Flyers fan.
Rocky Balboa,
cheesesteaks.
All right, Dave.
The Liberty Bell.
Dave, we'll let you
Roy
go.
Halladay. Ooh, too
Roy
soon.
Halladay.
Too soon.
Dave,
that joke really crashed and burned.
All right, we'll let you go on that note, bud.
Okay. All right. You guys have a good night or day or whatever it is. I'm tired. I'm going to bed.
Good night, bud.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Man, that Dave can do anything.
That was a great segue from a live, not taped segment, Ryan.
Stop telling them the truth, Paul.
Dave's.
I'm a journalist. I'm all about uncovering truth and showing people how the
you're
sausage
not a
is
showman.
made.
No, he's not. He's the guy going, "Let me show you how the magic tricks really done." They recorded Dave earlier because of a time difference, and I was late parking the car.
Time warp.
So people, remember I show up mid-interview with Dave after being in the opening of the show?
The legend of Paul McClellan.
Love it. And that's what you get on Pucks on Net and on the rig.
You should have pre-taped it, and I'm not asking any questions. People think I'm just pretending to be Dave. Like, you have call-ins. That's just me pretending to be somebody.
That would have worked, too.
Yeah, and if your mic didn't work, you'd be Skyping in from the corner.
The corner.
Anyway, imaginary guests calling in. We've never stooped to that level. Have you noticed that fake Jim Rutherford account on Twitter? I have no idea who's behind it. There's angry NHL fans that tweet at him and think it's the real one, even though he's got 40 followers.
Have you gotten one recently?
I've gotten multiple. I've seen. It's not me. I've seen multiple tweets.
He scours the internet for.
All of a sudden,
people
you're not
are furious.
Well, I don't know.
I've seen people send him scouting reports for junior players. Anyway,
do you just pass them along to Sweden?
I make sure I email Jim, since I'm the contact with Jim Rutherford. I make sure he's checking that account, the fake account as well.
Oh, that's good.
So
as long as
those scouting reports.
As long as somebody's seeing it. Pittsburgh Penguins are doing good. They've won about 8. Oh, they had won 8 in a row. They just lost their first. They lost to the Blackhawks and then which just goes to show that if you stick with it and you try hard, you can win a hockey game.
Yay!
Blackhawks?
And the Blackhawks did it. Not only that, Duncan Keith scored a goal.
I think Strome's finally producing a bit offensively there after the trade.
Yeah, there's some positives there, but they're still a pretty bad team.
It was gonna happen.
They're getting good goaltending from that Delia kid.
Delia.
My grandma was from Delia, Alberta, so props to him. I'm sure he's from Delia too.
Jeez. That's just the kind of stuff you hear on the rig.
On the rig.
On the rig, where we go out to the small towns surrounding Edmonton and occasionally Calgary.
Sherwood Park.
Delia, it's out past Drumheller.
Okotoks.
They've got one little corner store and a diner.
4
tables in that diner.
and one of us is us podcasting on the rig. Seeing the joy and whimsy in Geeta's face right now, I seriously think that on Friday after on your commute home, because we would obviously record in the morning, you would laugh and listen to On the Rig, me and Paul's Edmonton Oilers show. Ding 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 ding. Lucic, no goals.
We're talking about Lucic or the other $6 million man. Ericsson's got, one assist in his last 24 games, something like that?
Well, when you put him with guys that don't know how to produce like Bo Orvat and, you're not going to...
When he's riding top line minutes with Bo Orvat.
How many coattail riders are on this team now? We got 2 for sure.
What, you talking about him and Goldie?
Goldie and, Eriksson, that was the line to start the season, and they rode the shit out of those coattails, those long Swedish...
You can ride coattails as long as no one figures out that's what you're doing.
Hollywood Jim Carson did it for a long time.
Ideally, in the NHL, you want some of those guys, and you slot them in there. It's the Anson Carter situation.
Exactly.
The problem is, if they actually produce, more than what they're worth, at the end of the year, they go, oh... I think I'd like that $4 million contract. And then the team goes, no, you're not. It's the Sedins. Like, we love you. You're good. We'll pay you more than you deserve, but not that much.
And that's when you come back and say, I'd like that $4.25 million contract.
Is that what he got in Columbus?
No, I don't know what he got.
But Anson Carter got big money to go to Columbus and did nothing after that. Great guy, but you need to play him with the right players. There's guys that make other players better, and then there's guys that are made better by other players.
The coats in Columbus weren't long enough to ride.
And I'm worried about Elias Pettersson, about Louis Eriksson, because I'm worried that with not producing the way he has, he's not going to get that big fat contract where he just sits on his ass for the rest of... Oh, wait, he's already got that shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
You mean in 3 years when he's up for a new contract, he's not going to get that?
Please. He's going to go buy some sort of island next to Pavel Bure's island in Florida and just call it a career.
That sounds like a good plan.
Oh, yeah.
If we got those Patreon dollars coming in, we could buy our own private island next to Pavel Bure.
On the other side?
Paul and him can talk knee war stories. He could be a
Eriksson might have to put in some time with the Marlies before that happens, though, the way things are going right now.
This week's guest on the rig, Pavel Bure again. He doesn't have shit to say about the Oilers.
Yeah, sorry, Pat, we're not talking about any of the teams you played for. We're only talking about the Oilers.
And not the Oilers you played against.
I haven't watched hockey in over 15 years.
That is a lie, Pavel. The Russian mob is making you watch hockey.
Only Putin hockey games.
He was at that one Olympics, remember?
And he came back to make good with the Canucks, get his number retired.
That's right. So he's been forced to watch at least 2 games.
At least 2 games.
He's been playing in those Putin games in Russia. Have you seen the clips from those? Where it's like a team of former NHL All-Star Russian players feeding Putin and he gets like 9 goals.
I picture, I've never seen the footage, but when you say feeding him, I picture him in the Ovechkin office, like just one.
And nobody goes near him. No one plays defense on him.
That's the way superstars should be protected, Paul. And that's why Elias Pettersson's out for 1 to 2 weeks because he doesn't play the game like Putin.
Kotkaniemi in 15 years is going to be a washed-up former NHLer playing in the KHL, and he's going to get invited to one of those games, and no one's going to tell him the rules, and they're going to come out of a scrum behind the net, and he's going to give Putin the old heave-ho.
The old Pettersson
still
one,
be
too?
President of Russia in 15 years.
But wait,
And
what if
break
the
his
Canucks
knee-
acquire him at the deadline?
In a real Brandon Manning-like scenario, then they're going to go...
That'll be something.
They're going to go out back to the Zamboni. And
I was just going to say, like, the threats at Kotkaniemi are going to be much worse coming out of Russia than they were out of Vancouver.
Yeah.
And they were bad out of Vancouver.
If Kotkaniemi and Pettersson are on the same team at the trade deadline, they're going to get in a circle. They're all going to be in like a street fight, and they're all going to be banging on car hoods and honking their horn. And those two are just going to slap the shit out of each other.
You know nothing's going to happen in Vancouver.
There'd be no kickback. There'd be no pushback.
Yeah.
Kotkaniemi's going to walk in and be like, well, I'm wearing 16. Somebody do something about it.
No, it would be worse. It would be
17.
Give me 11.
Give me 11, 28, or 37. He's in mess territory.
I'm wearing 4 numbers this year. The good news out of that was that Pettersson's only going to miss 1 to 2 weeks with an MCL sprain. And even better news is the Canucks have a pretty relaxed schedule.
They have one game this week.
They have one game this week against Zona, against the other side of the fancy stat spectrum, or just the bad at being a GM spectrum. We don't want to bring fancy stats into the muck into the muck here.
Don't slag the Arizona Coyotes, because I have a feeling they may be looking for a new GM soon, and all of us are more than qualified to fill the role. So
that'll be episode 64 of On the Rig.
We're all in there for interviews, trying to throw each other off for the.
Don't get Geeta. She doesn't know what she's talking about. We're all gaslighting each other. We're going to go with Dave, who's going to GM the team via Skype from Ottawa. No conflict of interest there.
Look, guys, I got you a puppy.
You're going to need it when we move you to Houston. The funny thing is, one of the worst, we were saying with Dave, you go from one of the best games of the year when they played Ottawa and came back and won in overtime, to one of the worst against the Toronto Maple Leafs, where you put an AHL goalie. The Canucks were miserable. I think they were showing scoring chances in the fancy heat chart, and it was just an embarrassment for the Canucks. Mm-hmm. And the
team was deflated.
It's just
they were riding high.
Yeah.
They might have turned things around in Montreal the next night. Then they lose their best player, and then they're like, "We're done."
And the other thing was Pettersson goes for the MRI, and it's we'll know after the game. So I know I'm just keep the clock running. Let's see what is wrong with him. Right. So I had no interest in that game, and I was just looking at Twitter waiting for who is going to break it first. Rick Dollywall.
It almost felt like the Toronto game. They saw the break coming. They know they've got whatever this is, 5 days off in a row, and you kind of mail it in if you know you got Christmas holiday. You're at work. You got 2 weeks off if you're in one of those sweet jobs. You're a teacher, those teachers that don't work hard at all. No, that's not true at all. Both my parents were teachers.
That's gonna be the YouTube clip. P Mac hates BC teachers.
Oh,
overpaid.
He's not getting that Arizona job with that clip.
Re-elect Christy Clark.
I'm more thinking when students are in school last week before holidays and you're if you have a test, you're not really that invested. The Canucks saw they had a week off. In addition to that, they had just been to the funeral in Montreal for their season. And both teams there was no energy after that injury. It was both teams were affected by that. It was not energizing for the Canadiens any stretch. And then, they went into Toronto just okay, we just got to make it through this and we can go home and see our families.
They hadn't been home since Boxing Day, or at least the day out, the 27th.
Right, and that first week of January has felt like the longest week ever.
It really has. Yeah. And I don't know what has happened, but New Year's Eve seems like a month ago.
It was last Monday.
That feels like an eternity ago.
It's March now.
It's probably because we don't see daylight anymore.
It was sunny today. I almost went hiking. Because it's going to be rainy again for 2 weeks after this.
It was sunny today. I stood by the windows at work, and I laid in it. I just basked in it like I was a cat. I'm like, this isn't going to be around much longer.
No, the sun set on my drive home.
Yeah, the sun rises. The sun is peeking over the horizon as I walk in, and it's coming down on the other side of the horizon while I'm leaving.
Right.
So seasonal affectiveness disorder is a real thing. And then when you can't see Petey bring you a little bit of Christmas joy, it just really kicks you right in the ass. But anyway, there's only one game this week against Zona, and then the big bloodbath. A week from yesterday, they'll play Florida at home.
Okay.
And that's where they're really going to give them that pushback that they should have given back in October.
Right. They've had time to think about it and dwell on it.
Yeah, they put the pushback in the slow cooker. And, it's like a chili. It's going to be real good.
Luongo's interview with Friedman and Merrick said he was waiting for the rumble to happen when he gets back to Vancouver, and he might have to fight a goalie. And then he thought a bit about it and said, both their goalies are 6'6". I don't know if I really want to do that. But then one of those guys got moved, so maybe he just has to kick the crap out of Thatcher Demko. Who knows? Who's only 6'2" or whatever. Luongo's 6'3". He could take Demko.
Luongo cannot fight. He's too.
He'll break. He's
He'll
Mr. Glass.
He'll break emotionally and like literally. Like he'll like bones and just like, what have I done?
He's Samuel Jackson in
shattered
Unbreakable.
Luongo.
He's turned into Sammy Sallow in his old age.
Yes, he has. But yeah, so in a perfect world, Pettersson misses 1, maybe, or he'll miss 2, maybe 3 games.
Where's Sammy Sallow?
Oh,
Where?
Yeah, I
Long
think
retired.
Okay, thanks.
He's
in
drafted in
Tampa.
like the 90s, I think.
It clearly I've shut down.
Well, we know it's hard to, with the lack of sunlight and the very negative football games we watched. It's just hard to take it serious.
12 hours of the worst football ever.
What about Tommy Sallow? Where's he playing these days?
I'm not that bad. I know he stopped playing after 98 Olympics.
I got to tell you this.
Talking about goalie fights.
I can't believe this has come up because I was out doing a little drinking on Friday night, and out of context, my sister sends me a text, and it's of Dan Kluche challenging the Islanders bench after the Tommy Sallow fight. And I'm like, why are you sending me this? And she was going down little hockey fights, memory lane.
Okay.
And it's so funny that we're talking about Tommy Sallow because that came into my life on Friday night.
He'd be a good guest for Oil Rig.
On the rig.
On the rig. Who cares?
Wait, no, it was 2002 he stopped playing, right?
Well, that's when he like ducked
When he let the puck in.
the greatest goal against next to
Yes.
Danny Kluche. Who, now it all makes sense. That's why they're fighting. They knew what their future had.
It was
in store.
contagious. Can't get too close to either of those guys if you want to play goal at any level of hockey.
Gotta get that stink on you. Kotkaniemi, Pettersson, didn't think it was
Kotkaniemi? How stuck are you on Kotkaniemi? As you've been calling him.
Kotkaniemi.
Kotkaniemi.
Just break it into syllables. Kotkaniemi.
No matter how bad Pettersson's knee feels, it's not as bad as Derek Pouliot's pride after Coach's Corner, which is one of the like we're usually giving him shit, but Donnie was right on the money today or on Saturday, where if you watched, it was Trevor Moore scored his first NHL goal against the Canucks, and it was on a one-on-one battle in front of the boards, and Derek Pouliot just went all invested one way, and Trevor Moore just kind of stepped slowly the other way, and then he goes. And Don Cherry was basically saying, now these are transcribed, so it's hard to recite back. But he's like, if I had done that when I'd played, I'd never would have played again. And then he was saying, giving advice to the kids out there, if you think you can't play, just look at Derek Pouliot. That guy just did that, and he keeps on going. Like, he shit on him royally.
Yeah.
And it was terrible defense.
Right.
A lot of Canucks fans were keen on that because people have been pointing out suspect mistakes being made by Pouliot all season.
Mm-hmm.
I was all for giving him a chance, but he's sort of gone. People were comparing him. Maybe he's like Ben Hutton, where there's a little dip and he needs a little bit of help, but like it doesn't seem like, I don't know, I'm not seeing the same potential in this guy that I saw in Hutton, even when Hutton was having his rough days.
Paul, you just said it. You give him a chance. It doesn't work.
You move on.
And you say, bye-bye. The KHL, you're going to love it. It's going to be fantastic. Or you're
Problem is, Michael Del Zotto that they're bringing in for him, who's also been making some questionable plays, even though he makes 3 times as much money or so.
Well, he's DJing. Man, I'll tell you one thing about Michael Del Zotto. I was creeping his Instagram stories.
Yeah.
That guy is making all that money. He still rips YouTube songs to MP3 to put on his phone. Like he did a screenshot of a song he was listening to, and it was like so-and-so, and then in brackets, video, and then the artist with no cover art.
And you're just letting him, putting him on blast right now. The FBI is probably listening to this podcast. They're going to be looking into this now.
Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's DEL space Zotto. Zooty.
Yeah. Anyway, that Jerry also saying Pettersson was looking for trouble.
Oh,
so it's all his fault that he got injured.
I wish he would choose his words better. Because
looking for trouble.
I am looking for. He is spoiling for a fight.
How dare you dig for the puck in the corners and then try to move into position to get a pass?
I'm looking for blood, baby.
If Pettersson doesn't go into the corners, Dodge, look at that chicken Swede won't go in the corners. It doesn't make sense. Like, you can't do anything with Don Cherry.
Yeah,
like, he's always been bad, but like, I don't know if it's getting worse or if it's just.
I think he's looking. He says the line "looking for trouble" because he was roughhousing instead of just leaving the play.
Okay.
And but you choose your words like that. That's like me saying, Paulie, you're looking for trouble when you got in that big inflated talus ball and bunged up your own knee.
Wow.
Yeah, we are having a fun one this week, folks.
I thought he'd lay into Kotkaniemi because he's like, you don't grab a guy when you're falling down because then you risk injuring everybody on the. Like, I thought he'd be on that. Like, that's kind of a gutless
right.
He was
thing
extra.
to do.
He was extra squirrely this week because everything that he advises people not to do happened to Team Canada at the World Juniors.
Right.
Don't upset the hockey gods. Don't score 14 goals against the poor Danes.
Right.
Danes?
Danish, yeah.
Thank you.
The Danes.
Don't put your stick in the lane so that it deflects over Michael DiPietro's shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And get yourself a good wood stick like Al McInnes. Not going to break on a 2-on-1. Jeez, let's go.
So how pumped is everybody in Vancouver? The hero of the tournament, or at least one of them, Tony Uutinen.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Future Canucks superstar. I got my number 3 Uutinen Canucks jersey at the World Junior Tournament.
Hell yeah, you did.
He's got move over Pat Quinn Hughes. We're talking about the real number 3 defenseman. It's Tony Uutinen,
And
gold medalist.
And just like the number's sake, he's going to punch Quinn Hughes in the face outside of a bar in Winnipeg to take number 3, just like the numbers Kevin Bieksa.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about him or Pat Quinn knocking Bobby Orr out cold.
Sometimes you got to fight Bobby Orr.
There's something about that number 3.
It is rough and tumble, and that's why we love Brent Sopel so much.
Yeah, number 3 and number 4, Brent Sopel.
You're back again. Well, we're not going to give you that old number. That's Juice's number, and he was going to punch him for it, so that's why he wore 4 at the deadline.
Did you guys watch the Juice interview on After Hours
No,
CBC this
but
weekend?
O.J. Simpson?
Yeah.
Orenthal James?
You could tell we've been on break because this is just an obnoxious
There are things you can say
podcast.
off the air.
His full name. I gotcha.
No, people keep talking about that interview, and they're like, why isn't Kevin Bieksa replacing Don Cherry? What's the deal?
I tweeted about, well, he's still waiting to find out if...
Yeah, you did that.
Yeah, it might have been me. I was probably the only person watching the interview. I felt like nobody else was tweeting about it, so I suggested that at one point. He's still trying to get a contract. He said he's interested in playing in Europe.
Oh, because he's fresh off the Spengler.
Yeah. Who was it? Another former NHLer who's in the twilight of his career just signed in Switzerland today.
Jason Garrison.
No, not Jason.
Oh, he signed there too.
Okay. I want to say it's like Dominic Moore.
Yes,
Dominic Moore?
he did. Dominic Moore did.
Signed in Switzerland. And so he said he's open to that just as something different for him and his family, almost like a working holiday for a year or two.
That'd be a pretty ideal working holiday.
Oh, especially if you're going to Switzerland. It's beautiful over there.
Well, I don't think his kids are that old, too, so that, you're not disrupting too much, and you give them that that exposure to another culture for a bit. And that's great. Go for it.
We've talked about this before, I think, on the podcast, where ideally would you want to play as a professional?
Oh, Kalamazoo Wings.
The Italian League.
ECHL.
Italian League, Swiss League, maybe even Germany would be fun.
ECHL, you drive yourself to the games. You buy your own gear and meals.
How about you go play for the, what's the team in Glasgow? The Moorhead Clan or whatever in the industrial area of Glasgow. That'd probably be a fun time.
Juice, I don't know, because he's smart. And the whole talk of the town, or not, the whole talk of the league 5 years ago was, I can't wait for Paul Bissonnette to be out of the league because he's going to be perfect at broadcasting.
You know what he's doing right now?
A podcast.
About The Bachelor.
Yeah, him too. But, I mean, right now Brian Burke is the guy that I could see replacing Don Cherry. And, I love watching him talk.
Right.
But I do feel bad because I already see the similarities with Grapes, because Grapes talks about winning the Jack Adams in 1977 and the time they had 10, 20 goal scorers or whatever it was. Brian Burke has all these stories because he's very recently removed from the game, so he can talk about how they scouted Pettersson and what he thought about Johnny Gaudreau and all these players. But then those are going to dry up. And he's going to keep hanging his hat on those stories. I mean, we're a long way from that, but I'm just starting to notice the comparisons there.
I don't mind Brian Burke
I think he's
on
great.
TV. I don't think I want to give him, if you're going to make Coach's Corner what it has been in the past when you get somebody new in there. I don't want more of the same. I don't want another guy that's honestly moving towards the end of his career. I'd love a guy like Juice to pop in there, and he's obnoxious in a new way, and he's more relatable. And once you open him up, you could see even during the broadcast, the intermissions, he was saying more and more in his analysis.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Crack him open in a month or two in, he's going to be like Grapes in, his primetime olden days, but hopefully not saying as many dumbass, borderline racist things that,
Don't
about
forget
French people
sexist.
and stuff. And so, hopefully Juice is like a new age, obnoxious hockey commentator.
Grape juice? Oh
Yeah,
my
no,
God.
I was trying to come up with some kind of that was one I almost tweeted. Yeah. Also, he said he Superman punched. They were talking about a Superman punch. They got him to tell the Fedorov story for the millionth time, and he didn't want to talk about it. He said it was a bad example for kids.
He does, and this is such an example of lazy journalism. He's never wanted to talk about it. He was on Sportsnet 650, home of your Vancouver Canucks.
Sure.
And those nerds were prodding the shit out of him, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, it's not a story that needs to be told.
Right.
At least Scott Oak let him say, I don't want to talk because it's a bad example for kids.
Invite him onto the couch and let's see what we can pry out of him.
Just tell us about the punch.
No, well, we'd ask him about
Geeta, lock the door.
Superman punching Zach Cassian in an elevator, which is... That came up, and Scott Oak completely blew by it, was like, oh, interesting. So
Mind check.
He was running out of time in the broadcast, I get that. But it was like, when he asked for the story, and he was, tell us the story, Kevin. Tell us the story.
Yeah.
I don't want to, it's a bad example for kids, and he told it.
Okay.
And that's one of the things where I see, Juice go, you know what? That was something I did. It
He's a smart guy.
Got me noticed, but it wasn't a good thing to do. You kids at home, don't go punching your teammates in parking lots. I did it. It worked out, but it normally will get you sent out of the league, and you'll be playing in Kazakhstan.
That's the thing. That 50-year age difference means he's a little more in touch.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Some people will complain that that's too PC, but I think honestly it's just someone who's a little more considerate to different ways at looking at situations.
Well, exactly.
I'm really starting to think that the Canucks really the veteran guys on that team were quite parental figures for Zach Cassian during those tougher years.
Yeah.
And maybe he was hey, get your shit together, and Superman punched him in the elevator for something like that.
Possibly. I feel like it was probably more of a jokey situation.
You don't jokingly Superman punch somebody.
Do you know what Superman punch means? Almost like the leaping, it's a overly dramatic, cartoony thing.
He's still punching him in the face.
That's why we need details on the story. Is it a legitimate punch, or is it just now, Zach, this is what you got to do tomorrow night?
Boys.
Well, we'll ask him on the rig.
But there's a big difference between punching a guy because he's ticking you off, and this is what you got to do tomorrow night, Zach, and doing it, but not really laying into. I want to hear the story. Which one was it?
Speaking of former Canucks, I was doing a little digging around this morning, and I got to looking because the Anaheim Ducks are a really bad team. They've lost 8 in a row. They're going to play the Ottawa Senators this week in the winner gets Bobby Ryan's heart. Although he's out too. He had his third time. He get about 3-4 times a year. He blocks a shot with his hand, and his hand explodes. Okay. So that happened on Sunday again. But they're going to play each other in the somebody has to win battle. But I started going through their scoring depth. Ryan Kesler had his big game where he scored his hat trick, and he's like, I love proving my haters wrong, and F you, doubters. And we had a very nice conversation about how, unfortunately, the way he's played his game and his body and the way and his career, that it's being limited, and the fact that he's having this resurgence was kind of nice. And we had a great conversation. He's gotten 3 points since then. So in 40 games, Ryan Kesler has 4 goals and 2 assists. He's about a -15. And it's kind of sad to see.
Who's playing on his wings? Because if it's like Bo with Louis Eriksson insert. I guess it's Roussel right now, but if Kesler is on some kind of check-in line, he may not be getting a lot of support.
He may not
deserve it if he is putting up Louis Eriksson numbers.
He might be down to the third line because they traded for Adam Henrique last year.
That's right. He's checking line.
Yeah, but he's still this is a 40-goal scorer when he's healthy. It's just sad to see. He was
a 40-goal scorer. It's not
10 years ago.
Yeah, it's not sustainable necessarily.
But he still had before his.
Do you still see a spark in him?
You saw that spark in him when he was at his best when they went to the Western Final 2 years ago against Nashville.
Okay.
When Nashville lost against the Penguins.
Yeah.
And that is when Kesler and Bieksa were saying that loss was harder for them than 2011 because they knew that they were getting up there. A lot of rings in the tree, but it's just so sad that he should have probably, taken the year off to get 100% because there's no way he is 100%.
Yeah.
And just to see him with 6 measly points at the halfway point of the season, of
course it's sad.
It's just too bad. I mean, he's also a bit of a jerk, but you don't want to see somebody. He's only 34. He's still got some Spezza years left in him.
Talking about what line Kesler is, can I take a second to just voice my complaint about some Canucks Twitter people this week?
Me?
Just give me 2 minutes.
Okay.
Not even 60 seconds. Okay. When the lines are posted on Twitter for which players are playing together any given night for the Canucks, they're not necessarily listed by the reporters in order of what line they are. So for the Leafs game, Besser and Goldobin and Sutter were listed third in most reporters, which is probably the order they skated out in the pregame skate, the warm-up, and in practice that day. Yeah. That doesn't mean they're the third line, because there were a bunch of people flipping out like, Travis Green is dumb because he's got Brock Besser on the third line. And I'm like, no, that's still debatably the first or second line. They're just not listing them in order of quality.
That's my question. I'm like, that seems so arbitrary to say this is my first line, this is my second line. Like, it means nothing, I think. Because it doesn't mean so-and-so is going to play more or less.
When your team is as stacked, those are air quotes, by the way, as the Canucks, unless you're you're gonna get minutes.
It's more of a conversation of Travis Green has been trying to, especially on the three lines, split guys up so that you've kind of got 3 second line if they're having good nights,
sure,
as opposed to a definite top line and 2 third lines. You're trying to put Besser on one line, and sometimes separate from, I guess that doesn't happen that much, but all season, Horvat's line's been listed ahead of Pettersson's line.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, Pettersson's been the top line since game 2 or 3.
By himself, yeah.
But he's listed because they skate out in the warm-up second to Horvat's line. That doesn't mean Horvat and whatever 2 scrubs he's got on any given night are the top line. They're the checking second line.
Pettersson's the top line, and then the rest is just third-ish line.
It's like a pyramid.
Yeah, the Canucks are a pyramid scheme.
Anyway, there's lots to complain about with this team. You can even complain about some things Travis Green is doing. But whatever order the lines are listed in Twitter does not mean Brock Besser is getting less ice time.
No.
I mean, it could, but that's not what it is, the order they're listed in.
We're gonna need Brock to kill some penalties, play some tough minutes in a defensive zone. Probably gonna take some defensive draws. We're going to need a lot of...
Brock isn't a center, but we're going to put him in the center.
You want to see that complete game from a guy like Brock Besser, and we need Tim Schaller up there in the slot getting one-timers. To answer your question earlier, Paulie, third line, Andrew Cogliano, still in the league, Ryan Kesler, and Jakob Silfverberg.
Kesler should be putting up more numbers with those two. I don't know.
Silfverberg is
not many
numbers.
Player.
Yeah, he's one of their diamonds in the rough there. Hey, is Corey Perry playing hockey?
Carey
Perry's not playing hockey.
He's still hurt.
That's gonna be that's one of our segments on the rig, but we do it for Chris Russell. Chris Russell, he's back.
You've got a real rednecky accent for on the rig.
On the rig, eh?
What do they eat down in Orange County? Poke bowls? If you were a poke bowl, would you eat yourself? That's Perry Carey right there.
Perry Carey. A couple of things about for our on the rig segment. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. They somehow beat the Anaheim Ducks. They got destroyed by Willie Desjardins' LA Kings.
They shut out the Ducks. So now Cam Talbot's making a pitch to take his job back from Koskinen.
And we
Fair enough.
We all know how that's going to go.
We don't. Cam Talbot can be really good.
We don't know what's going to happen. One week the Oilers are going to win, like score 21 goals and have 3 against. And the next week they're going to just
implode.
I'm really expecting Cam Talbot to be the next Devin Dubnyk. He's going to find his way to a new team. I think he's a UFA in the summer. His contract's up one way or another.
Yeah.
He'll sign on somewhere that plays defense.
Right.
And all of a sudden he'll be a Vezina candidate. And people will be like, what just happened?
He rode some coattails.
Yeah, that's the Devin. I love how Devin Dubnyk was an Oiler, and that happened to him.
What's the opposite of riding coattails? Because that's what's happening to Cam Talbot right now.
You carry them on your shoulders?
Yeah, but you...
No, but I mean, a goalie can only do so much, and when you're behind a crappy defense, it's the opposite of riding coattails.
You have a ball and chain.
Milan
Lucic is pretty spherical and rotund.
I'm talking more
he's
about the
an
defense
anchor.
core.
Yeah,
or an albatross.
No, because an anchor is a good thing. Like this boat, this ship is not going anywhere with an anchor like Pat Roy in between the pipes there.
Anyway, over the weekend, Kotkaniemi was in the night they got shut out 4-0, and then the next day Cam Talbot's in and they win 4-0. So he may get another shot at the net.
Yeah. A couple quick things here from the Oilers. They had the knee-jerk over Christmas. They had their knee-jerk reaction. We need some defensemen quick, so they traded for Alex Petrovic and Brandon Manning. Paul,
the problem is they have too many 4th and 5th defensemen. It's not that different than what's happening in Vancouver. You don't go out and acquire a bunch more depth defensemen when you have a murderer's row of depth defensemen.
Death.
Polly, doing
like
a little.
We said, those numbers mean nothing.
You got a little Dave. You're coming in fired up you're doing a little Dave cosplay. I really like it.
I didn't get that. And the Brandon Manning thing, I went back and pulled the footage up and got 100, likes or retweets or whatever on Twitter from right after the first game after.
Yep.
I guess the first game McDavid played Manning.
Because he tried to fight him the whole game.
And he called him classless and, basically was like, I don't like to say anything bad about anybody. And to his credit, I don't
fuck this guy.
He does. But yeah, he's just like, this is like the worst guy in the league because he came at me and told me he injured me on purpose.
And so, hey, why don't you take that empty stall right next to 97
Take
there?
it they're not roommates.
Well, I heard through the scuttlebutt of Twitter, so you know it's true and can quote me, but that they asked McDavid, are you okay with this deal? So when you have to ask your player if they're okay with that deal and you're playing that poorly and you're not doing very well.
What if he just said nothing at all and just looked at them and they're like, oh that's not a...
That's not a no. Come on in, Brandon.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that's probably already looking ahead, going, okay, Johnny Tavares got out of the island. How many more years do I have to put in
He's like,
here?
I've got these great Tampa Bay sheets.
But honestly,
that was a smart zinger because I had to think back to Johnny Tavares. I got my sheets, so I'm gonna go to Toronto.
It's you're running the guy out of town potentially. You've got a history of issues with the greatest player in the game with Gretzky. There's just so much bad juju around the situation right now. And it's like they're trying to force his hand so he demands a trade.
It's
like they don't
like
even
that.
want him to wait it out. And maybe that's the best thing the Oilers could do. If their problem has been organizational depth and they've got some secondary guys that can fill the void, a Draisaitl who can still be a big star player, and you can bring in two not Connor McDavids, but guys that can contribute, maybe a defenseman. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world because this is just not working, whatever.
They're going to do exactly what they did with Taylor Hall.
They're gonna do it.
Pennies on the dollar.
Give us Anze Kopitar for McDavid. Straight up. He's good. 2 cups.
No,
winning
be like
culture.
Jake Muzzin straight up. Brandon Manning going to Edmonton, just like that didn't have to happen.
No. Like there's so many other jabronis just down the way here.
The Canucks had so many.
They got jabronis. They got too many. They're just running around the place.
You're talking about depth defense. Every team's got an extra 3rd or 4th or, well, I mean, they're trading for 5th and 6th guys. they'll get rid of, and maybe, Lucas Spiza. Oh, wait, did they already try?
Well, No, that was Jason Garrison. It's all those number 5s that just throw me off. I don't know if this was on the Pucksonet group chat, which I must say over Christmas has been a lot of fun. It has been a lively one.
You've got to keep us apart so we're not sick of each other, so we'll actually text.
That's true.
Right?
But Dave, I think
real fast.
I might have been joking with just Dave, but I'm like, they're gonna trade McDavid just like they did Gretz, and they're gonna get if they get a new GM, they'll get a murderer's ransom, and if they don't, they'll get Jake Muzzin straight up. But
murderers can't ransom people. You realize, like they've already
what kind of ransom? A smuggler's ransom?
Kidnapper's
ransom.
Chips.
We don't know crime.
Yeah. How do you launder money? Can somebody Wikipedia that for us?
I just like that Ryan's trying to take the things I've said earlier in the podcast and put a twist on them. But.
Well, because I wanted to bring him back because Dave made a joke saying that there's going to be a press conference and Connor McDavid's going to be like, I promised Leon I wouldn't do this.
Yeah. No, it's
to wrap up on the rig and the problems in Edmonton. Milan Lucic has 2 goals since Christmas 2017. Oilers' bottom 9 forwards, not McDavid, Draisaitl, or the Nuge, combined for 1 shot on Saturday versus the piece of shit garbage Willie D. LA Kings. And the first 3 D-men brought in by the Oilers after Andrei Sekera got hurt was Jakub Voracek, Jason Garrison, and Chris Weidman. All got traded by Edmonton, then waived by their new teams. Jason Garrison's out of the league already.
Out of the continent.
Yeah. And their latest 2 defensemen, Alex Petrovic and Brandon Manning. Manning was already a healthy scratch on Sunday because Johnny shot blocker himself, Chris Russell, back for Edmonton. So there's some really big problems going on in Edmonton. And then I will just go to questions, and then we will wrap up the show.
Okay.
This is a bit of an interesting point. Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, they signed some of the biggest Luongo-like deals that weren't deemed illegal by the NHL.
Yeah.
They're at the halfway point of their deal. And so 2 of the more mediocre guys who went to Minnesota now have only 6.5 more years to go before their UFAs.
6.5 more years of fairly good, but probably leaning towards mediocre good hockey.
Yes.
But they play in Minnesota and no one's watching.
That's true. So some quick questions here. This one comes from Geeta Reddy, at Geeta Jolly Reddy.
At Geetanjali.
Stop
butchering it. It's racist.
I mean, he did better than he did with Kotkaniemi's name.
Kotkaniemi Geeta. Do you know where the closest Red Lobster is to us? Do not captains boil me.
What?
Maybe you could explain the second part first.
The Captain's Boil is a seafood buffet that's, springing up all over the Lower Mainland, I feel.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple in the near downtown
area.
I was going to say, Boyle is not a captain. I'm pretty sure he's just a detective.
But in my Twitter feed earlier, while I was starving today, the Red Lobster popped up, and I'm like, you know what? That sounds delicious.
Okay.
I've never been to a Red Lobster. We could go to Bellingham.
Well,
or whatever.
Mills answered it already, but he is unfortunately incorrect.
Is he?
Because most of Bellingham has closed down with the strong American dollar or weak Canadian dollar, depending on what side of the wall you're on.
Where do we have to drive to?
Linwood.
That's not that far.
No, we'll go there on the way to an Everett Silvertips home game.
Or just to get some cheap gas.
Outlet malls.
Etc. Cheap Nikes. This is an interesting question from Yerky21, who has been take a drink every time we've said Yerky on the show with our segment with Dave. Would it be the worst thing in the world to have an off-ice official with a better view of the entire rink so that calls behind the play, wink, wink, Pettersson on Kotkaniemi, don't automatically get missed?
Haven't I talked about this on the show?
Well, I think we're talking about would you want it. So it's a...
Do you like coach's challenge in hockey?
You can't
throw a flag.
You can't do it for penalties.
Oh.
You can do it for offsides. You can do it for goaltender interference. And
well, it's like goals. It's to call back goals, essentially. It's not for penalties or whatever. But I thought I would love a eye of God because of the way the game is played right now, you could have somebody upstairs with multiple angles. You have a couple of guys upstairs.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to see it for offsides. I think I've changed my opinions. I used to be like, sure, if it's offside, call the goal back. Whereas now I'm like, if it's too close to calling the ice, it's the spirit of the law with offsides. Like, we're not talking about a guy that's cherry picking. We're talking about a couple of inches most of the time if they miss it.
I feel like you could have someone up there and you'd still have these mistakes.
Oh, you'd have mistakes, but yeah, it's you'd catch more stuff. The other side, I wanted to bring this up when we were talking about the Oilers so much. People were complaining when McDavid got taken down in Vancouver.
And now in Anaheim.
You know, talking about the Stars, and then conversation comes up and people are saying maybe 30% of penalties on the big stars in the game are called because the referees say, or the NHL says, well, if we called them all, there'd be 10 a night, and that's too many. But my thing is, like, call them all. If the rules are there in place, call the rules, and you'll have... They've done this with obstruction pushes in the past. You get 10, 20 games to start the year or whatever where there's a ton of penalties, but then the players go, oh, I can't do that. Let's not do that anymore. I'll get called, and then they ease up when they do call it and let it all back in the game. But if they just called all these penalties on guys like McDavid, or I guess now where Pettersson's getting into that neighborhood.
Yeah, number 1 and 2 respectively in the league.
Just call the obstruction garbage and the mistreatment of star players, and players won't do it anymore because they'll know their team will be shorthanded 10 times a night.
So you're all in favor.
I'm all in favor. Add a couple guys
God.
upstairs. Eye of God with a button that's attached to a whistle that chirps and stops the play in the arena or whatever. Or have guys with radios, they can whistle down or radio down to the on-ice officials to blow the whistle and tell them what to call. We're at that era where everybody sees it now, and if the refs on the ice miss it, we want a clean game. Depends what you want. Some people are in the camp of just, we want mayhem, chaos.
Geeta, what about you? Status quo or eye of God?
Status quo. I already said, I'm like, these mistakes will get made, but Paul makes a legit argument.
You make a very good argument.
A lot of stuff happens behind the play.
Yeah.
A lot of dirty crap gets missed because it's like pro wrestling.
Exactly.
You do it when the official isn't looking. You hit the guy with the chair.
That's what's so great about this game.
Isn't that what Kotkaniemi did to Pettersson? He hit him with a steel chair?
That's the thing. Someone's going to be playing God.
Yeah.
Isn't that the whole role of the referee?
The refs do a pretty damn good job.
They do a good job.
And I think that...
But they would do a better job with... an above.
You make a very good point, but I think of it like an umpire calling balls and strikes. Mm-hmm. It's that, and like Dave, if he was here, he would make the same argument too. It's that human aspect of the game that you need to keep before. But you make a great point, and I'm not disagreeing with everything you say. But in my personal opinion of what I want the one. You want what's happening right then and there. I want the one ref keeping his eye on the play, and I want the second ref, the farther ref, looking at shit behind.
Theoretically, it works. Even let the linesman call penalties or something if you want to add extra eyes on the ice.
Yeah,
that's one I would definitely agree with you because as it gets faster, it is a cluster fork out there.
Right.
Let all 4 call penalties, and that one I'll agree with you. But they're going to do everything in their power to preserve the human element and aspect of sports, and I'm all for it.
You might be able to get away with it if you give extra powers to the linesman, or just encourage the referees to call penalties, to call the rules. You might not need that upstairs person, because from our perspective, refs miss stuff that happens right in front of them. That's why some people think an upstairs guy might work. But
I would want something a little more egregious than the tie-up with Pettersson to spark all this.
That's just what the topic that has pushed this in the forefront. But even look, I think McDavid over the weekend got hit from behind.
But the ref was
into the boards. The ref was looking at it. Mm-hmm. No call.
That's something that needs to be fixed, and that's where I would.
That's what's opened the conversation in Vancouver more the last couple of weeks. But it's something I've been talking about for the last couple of years. Where I don't know, more and more, I'm just like, yeah, take that. I like the physicality of the game. I don't like the cheap stuff.
Lori Edwards asks, what would you rather have happen? The Canucks tank the rest of the season because the Canucks and get a good, if not first lottery pick, or we maybe just clutch a playoff spot and have some postseason fun for the first time in ages. I'm in the mindset that the Canucks are cursed and there's bad juju all around that club. Go with playoff run because I don't think they'll ever. They would have to lose every single game from here on out to possibly get that chance at a first overall.
I want the playoff run too.
Paul?
Whatever the team does. Like, honestly, I've been in journalism so long, and I've always kind of been like, let's just see this soap opera play out either way.
Your voice changes too.
You're going to get some. Yeah, I'm going into broadcaster mode.
Paul McCullen
You get something out of both.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on if you're someone who's really pushing
We
for.
have not gotten anything out of the former.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. That's when you'd be hoping for losses. But now I'm selfishly wanting them to try and win every night because it's
so much fun in the city.
Very fun.
If they lose, if they miss the playoffs, the draft is in Vancouver. If any envelopes are going to be frozen or anything for a draw, this is the year where Vancouver would be the one that gets a little push from old man Gary in the head office.
Yeah.
So there's that to look forward to. If they make the playoffs, it's good for the youngsters to, get the experience. And theoretically, Jim Benning, when they make the playoffs and gets a pick, he gets a Brock Besser.
Yeah.
Don't you want another Brock Besser from a 20-something pick in the draft?
We've learned to trust his scouting, and if there's one thing that he can do well with, it's a
he does better when they
right. We want 2 Brock Bessers.
He does better when he moves back in the draft, doesn't he? You don't want him.
He has to try harder.
We want 2 Brock Bessers, or we want 1 Brock Besser and a Alex Daig. Was that the Brian Burke quote? Who went before them?
One Sedin and a Pavel Brendel, or a Sedin and a Stefan, or 2 Sedins.
Yeah, so he wants a Besser and a Brendel, or 2 Brock Bessers. Also, thoughts on the performance of the young Canucks in the World Juniors. We touched on that earlier, as well as on the Patreon show, patreon.com/pucksonnet. Couple of bucks. Michael DiPietro, the fans were chanting his name. He was the player of the game multiple games, and he's looking great, and he's going to go back to juniors with something to prove.
Okay.
I don't think Quinn Hughes set the world on fire like some people were hoping he would.
He's not Bobby Orr.
He showed himself to be like the offensive defenseman on that American team that was very good.
He was the one name everyone in the city knew. That's it.
That other guy, Jack Hughes. Who's he?
Ty Madden was the guy that surprised me. I wasn't expecting much from him. He worked his way onto the U.S. team. He wasn't in camp in the summer.
Right.
Has been playing so well. And he was very noticeable at the game we were at. Like, just his forecheck's really good. He's quick. He's energetic. He's, I don't know, like Matt Cook almost entered my mind just at like his feistiness.
Don't
You
bring
don't want
on
a
Matt
Matt
Cook. That's what Jake Virtanen's going to be becoming, and it's just, come on.
Here's the thing. If Jake Virtanen, where he was drafted, turns into Matt Cook, that's a huge letdown. But if Ty Madden, taken 3rd round or whatever, later in the draft, in the 3rd round, you're looking for Matt Cook, so it's totally fine.
But Matt Cook's not going to do well in your Eye of God new NHL.
Okay, he's a new Alex Burrows type of guy.
No. He's going to piss.
No, Alex Burrows, it was all heart that took him there.
Do you know who the Eye of God is going to be up there? It's going to be Stefan Auger. That guy looks like Burrow. I don't like it. Beep, beep, beep. Press the button.
He's going to be the new John Madden. Let's go with that.
Let's wrap these.
It sounds like he's got like a collar on him. Just beep, beep.
Let's wrap these questions up here. Nathan Yankic goes, what is it with the World Juniors that drives Canadians mad? Why don't they overreact to losses in the World Championships?
I was thinking about this question. It's because for those 2 weeks, no one has anything else going on.
Yeah, there's very little sports on, and you're bored at home off work, and you just watch hockey, and the TSN hype gets injected into your veins.
Yeah.
It's also theoretically the best players of that age class.
That's not what's going into, because it's these people that aren't, they're not sophisticated junior hockey fans that are watching this.
They're just like,
that's
not who's watching.
There's something about the World Championships.
Yeah.
Because of when it is in the year.
Yeah.
You're getting guys that are
losers,
missed the playoffs or lose in the first round. Like,
those get lost in the midst of NHL playoffs and other sporting events that are going on in the spring.
Yeah, a lot of NASCAR.
And not to mention, they're on so early in the morning because they're majority being played in Europe. Here, people are shut down because they're not at work.
Yeah, and it's like by the time Boxing Day night comes around, you're so amped up for Denmark, Canada, because you need something to watch.
Because you've had your top 100 sporting events of the year.
Jordan Eberle!
Let's review the top 100 goals or free throws or whatever.
Free throws.
I think even if people aren't following junior, there is something to be said about like a tournament that features the best of the best.
No, the thing is, there's so much hype built around that because there's nothing else going on. There's so much focused on that that is why Sportsnet started to do CHL Sunday. It was piggybacked off that. They wouldn't do it prior to. It was always after because the hype just carried on.
Yeah.
The interest. Because you suddenly started recognizing players around the CHL.
Yeah. So people are more into it. But yeah, the World Championships, there's a stink about it.
Of course, there's an Oilers stink about it.
There's more to it than,
Well, everybody, you go once you're out of the playoffs.
When I was a young lad, I would always be happy to see Trevor Linden go there. I'm like, golly gee, maybe he could win something.
When I was a young lad, I used to watch all of these tournaments. Which is why I feel very strongly about the World Juniors. I didn't care this go around, but I used to.
I don't like the way how Canada picks their team. It's quite political. You have to be every league, the 3 leagues need to be represented well enough.
I didn't realize that.
Always look, there is an equal amount of it's spread out. They don't really give college kids the chances. I think there was one NCAA kid. It's just, I don't know.
No kids from BC. No kids from BC.
No BC kids.
I didn't know that.
Which is fine because theoretically that's what we want. We don't want people being chosen purely based on the league they play in or the province they're born in.
Not. But back in the day, I mean, it seemed like it wasn't that way. But I could be wrong.
It's kind of like how the CHL top 10. There's always going to be 3, 3, and 4. Every league, it's there's a political aspect to it, and it seems like the who didn't make the team list is gets a little more coverage than who did make the team.
You know, in other levels of junior hockey tournaments, they play multiple Canadian teams a lot. There's either an East and West where you have it in like the 3 zones of the different major junior leagues.
Yeah.
Why not? This type of tournament, you could have a WHL Canada team and OHL, or at least regionally set. So even if there's NCAA guys, they play for their, if the West is Manitoba to BC and the territories or whatever.
Yeah.
Be interesting, and they would all compete.
Yeah. We'll wrap up after this question, and that's from Ryan Hank, always 94. If you were to melt Queen's News of the World and White Stripe Sticky Thump LPs together, would we create an entrance to another world where rhinos and giraffes rule the world? And both are very, very important albums, and we would live in that world, and we would be third in the food chain. So, long-necked giraffes would be looking for you.
The rhino part, I was thinking Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, we'll look out for them, Paul. Don't
Rocksteady.
Don't cross them. That's Bebop and Rocksteady.
Pretty sure Bebop was the warthog.
Sheer Heart Attack. That's a good song on that album. That'll wrap it up for this week's podcast, so then we can get into 5 minutes for paying, which is available only on patreon.com/pucksonnet, when you can pledge a couple of bucks. $5 will get you access to our bonus content we released last week. Me and P Mac go to the hockey game, and me and P Mac talk about Petey. Very good bonus stuff. That's patreon.com/pucksonnet. Couple of bucks. And make sure you follow us on Twitter at pucksonnetca or pucksnetca. And iTunes, go rate and review us if you don't want to give us any money, because we understand that's
you
it's
guys
January.
still use iTunes for podcasts?
Yeah, I hate it. Don't even get me started on it.
I use the podcast app.
It's okay. It's problematic.
I had issues with it.
It's problematic when you're trying to get your computer and your phone to talk to each other, because Apple has decided to not have Apple products talk to each other anymore. Go rate and review us if you haven't done that yet. If you're a new listener, you're humming and hawing. Those really help us out. And go subscribe to our email newsletter. Go to pucksonnet.ca. When the pop-up shows up, type your email in. You get 1 email a week on Friday, or in this case, it was Saturday. We tell you what we've released, a couple of zingers, talk about how the fantasy hockey league's doing, and it's pretty great. And just head on over.
Download Overcast. Listen to your podcasts on Overcast. And if Overcast wants to send us a couple of dollars,
Overcast, more superior than the app.
In my humble opinion.
I actually have it on my phone. I haven't used it yet. Overcast, if you're listening, we know you are. A couple of bucks our way to peddle your stuff.
Be our sponsor, please.
Go to pucksnet.ca for all our blogs and all that stuff. And
new app for your podcasts. It's better.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. And that's it. So I'm glad we're all back. Happy 2019. Hope you're all enjoying your sober January. I hope the gym's not too crowded for you. And I hope you're reading a lot of books. And then this time next week, I welcome you back to regularly scheduled programming, where they're not reading books or going to the gym.
I'll still be sober.